The one thing I want to say is like Vietnam gets a really bad rep for being such a developing country or unsafe. It is super untrue. It is a very safe country. It's an amazing place if you want to develop your business. People should come explore it more, and not just for the pho, because that's the only like dish everyone knows.
Okay, so now I'm with Marina, the CEO of Equo. I'm really happy to have you. I'd like to know more about your background and how you started your own company, and I'd love to know more about Equo. So how you started your company?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm originally from Canada. I moved to Vietnam about 4 years ago. Prior to that, I worked for a number of different marketing focused companies. So a lot of CPG brands, Unilever, Bacardi, LG, before I came over to Vietnam. So my entire background was in branding, marketing, and launching products into the market, just for consumer use. So I did that, and then, as I mentioned, 4 years ago, I moved to Vietnam, and then a year later after moving to Vietnam, I started Equo. And it was just a very interesting journey. I started it basically having never started a business by myself before, having no co-founders either, and basically just doing it also when the pandemic was happening. So I learned a lot of lessons, during that time.
I see. Were you always thinking of going back to Vietnam and doing your own business, or was it?
No, to be honest with you, the reason why I had moved here was for personal reasons. So my dad fell sick, and basically because of that reason, I came to Vietnam to help him out. It was only supposed to be just for 1 year. So I was supposed to do my 1 year in Vietnam, get some paperwork and things ready, and then basically come back. And that didn't happen, obviously. A lot of things changed both back home and in my experience here in Vietnam too. And a big part of that obviously was launching Equo as well.
Were you always thinking of becoming a startup, or?
No, that was also, that's a great question. So the funny thing is that this was always supposed to be kind of a small business, like a side idea. Again, I had never actually thought about starting my own business or even anything like that. I thought I was going to go in the corporate world, climb the corporate ladder, continue on that path, because I had already spent, basically 10 years of my life doing that. So so when we first started, it was meant to be a small business. We actually originally launched onto a platform called Kickstarter. So when we launched onto there, we got a lot of really great feedback. But during our Kickstarter campaign, the lockdown also happened. And so we basically had to kind of pause for a while. We completed the campaign, which was great. We got fully funded on the campaign. But then we had to deliver our product, so we just focused on that, assuming that the world would open up in the next 2 years. That didn't really happen either. Or in at least a couple months, And then it went from being a small business idea to being a startup, primarily because I ran out of money. I was funding it fully myself at the beginning because there weren't a lot of expenses. But when you start to, pay for employees or for staff or for inventory, and all of a sudden, this lockdown goes from what's supposed to be a couple weeks to months to years, it's really hard to plan for that. So we ran out of money and my own personal funding, so that's why we started to raise money.
You were mainly funded from venture capitals here in Southeast Asia, right?
Actually, no. I raised them from angel investors and from VCs outside of Vietnam. So in Singapore, in Indonesia, in Canada, and the US. I got my start really through a friend of mine who had run a startup for a while, and him mentoring me and guiding me through the process, and then also getting to accelerator program.
I see. So you have an entity in Singapore to do this, or?
We do now.
Okay.
When we originally started, and again, there's a whole bunch of mistakes, but I originally had set up our business in Delaware.
Okay.
Because I thought a lot of our investors would come from overseas, which they did. But there were certain issues that I had, and a lot of complications I had with trying to manage a business in Delaware. So instead, we had decided to re-domicile our business in Singapore. So now it is in Singapore.
Okay. I really want to know more about how you really felt when you started becoming a founder, because I think you had a long career of branding and marketing.
Long.
Yeah, but I really want to know how you felt and why you made that decision.
For me, it was probably the hardest decision I've ever made. And I say that because, like, as a person myself, I actually used to cry each time I left the company.
Okay.
Yeah, like I was that emotionally invested in the company and the work that I did and my colleagues too. And I would just bawl every single time I left. And for me as well, I'm also very risk averse. So I'm the type of person before who just kept their money in the bank and like got the little bit of interest. You know, I think what had changed for me at the biggest level was that, again, that incident with my dad where he got sick, you know, and then realized that life was really short. Basically, he had been diagnosed with late stage lung cancer, and they gave him, you know, 3 months tops to live. And that really changed a lot of things for me. It changed a lot of priorities for me. And then one of the things that it did help me do is, because I, you know, had to go over to Vietnam to help out my family, it put me in a completely new environment. I had never ever thought I would ever move to Vietnam. I actually, before that, I disliked Vietnam a lot. I was like, I'm never gonna move here. I would never live here in my entire life. And my parents, both of them, they gave me 3 months tops before I would cry and come move back. So no one thought I would actually live here in Vietnam for as long as I did. But when I made that jump, right, to start EQUO, I think it became something as, again, it wasn't for me a risk at the time because it was like a side business. It was tiny. I wasn't spending a huge amount of money on it. I was kind of doing side consulting at the same time, so I felt pretty safe.
Okay.
But the minute I started to feel that it started to become like a real founder journey was after the Kickstarter, when I took people's money. After I did that first step of just, like, you know, again, giving a product in exchange for someone else's hard-earned money, it felt really good. It felt like it was something that I was doing for myself, by myself, but also for the good of others. So I think that really helped me jump over that hump of being so scared to do anything risky, you know?
I know you're like really successful in Australia and, you know, the US and Canada and other countries in the West too, right? How did you manage to do that?
Well, I would say the first reason why we were so successful is that we told like a story. So I think one of the things that I would say is, like, you know, we operate in a segment that is commodity, right? Straws, forks, knives, spoons, like things that aren't really that sexy, you know, that are not that attractive. But if we told a story along with that, we put it, like, you know, a brand to it, gets people to be interested in it because it's not just a fork or whatever, or a straw, it's something more, then you start to capture an audience. I think what we're so used to, actually in a large part of Asia, is having a lowest price product with very little substance around it. And that has typically worked for us for a very long time in the past. But as of right now, that wouldn't necessarily fly. People want to know more about where the products came from, why they started, why it's important, why you should try it. And all those things have to now come as part of your package for any product that you introduce. So I think part of our success in overseas markets has been our storytelling. It also does, I think, help to do a little bit of like work and effort when it comes to like design. People, like, you know, when you can't speak the same language or, you know, or understand each other, at least visually, you can probably say that, hey, this looks good. You know, anybody from any part of the world can, most of the part are like agree upon a certain design being aesthetically pleasing. So we try to communicate a lot about our business through design too. So I think that helped. And then finally, I think it was just introducing something unique to the markets. Most of our products, you cannot produce, manufacture at all locally. And so that was attractive to a lot of these markets who have never seen those products ever before. So.
I see. Yeah, you told me about how, you know, like, I heard that in Southeast Asia, they're more focused on like the cost. Is that why? Is your main target in like the US and like the Western countries?
Well, actually, when we first started, yes, it was overseas, but now we've actually seen a lot of success here in Vietnam. So Vietnam is actually one of our top markets, along with the US and Europe, which is great for us. But, you know, that was never the intention. I never thought people in Vietnam would want to purchase our products because it is at more of a premium as well. I had a lot of, I think, assumptions that were wrong about the Vietnam market. I thought Vietnam didn't care about sustainability, but it was actually very, very well versed in sustainability. So we started to see a lot of success here in Vietnam along with overseas.
Did you actually like move to these places and did sales, or no, you just did it online? And...
Yeah, we couldn't at the time, right? I mean, not until really, I would say the last half of last year, were we able to start to meet people in person. But for the most part, we did everything online.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so our business, like, yeah, and honestly, we had no trouble really with connecting with people online because at the time, a lot of people had a lot of time on their hands. You know, they're all staying home.
Yeah.
So it was actually easier to connect with them.
Was it like mainly LinkedIn or like?
No, oddly enough, a lot of people contacted us through like various sources. It was like, but primarily through email and Facebook.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know how they found us, but like a big part of what we did in the first couple of years was we did tons of PR. Because it doesn't cost you anything unless you have a PR agency. It doesn't cost you anything, but it can bring a lot of value, a lot of eyeballs onto your business. So we did tons of PR, and that's something that we still do right now
I see.
to organically grow our business and bring in new potential partners with us. That's what we try to do as much as possible.
I know like your forks and spoons and your straws are made out of like many materials, like you know, coconut or
Sugarcane, coffee,
rice.
Yeah. Bunch of stuff.
Is there a reason why? Like, I'd love to ask like how you pick these materials.
Yeah, I guess the first thing is that you know, we're trying to replace something that is considered single use. So ideally, you use it once, you throw it away. For the products that were on the market at the time, besides plastic, you had kind of like wooden, and then maybe sometimes you had paper. You had paper for straws, but not for utensils. And you had wood for like the utensils, but not for the straws because it's too thick or whatnot. And so that was all you had as a choice. And one thing I learned very early on is sustainability as an industry is evolving super quickly. Like every year you hear like about 20 new materials that you can make something out of. Like you can make leather out of banana peels. You can make, I don't know, chairs out of rice. You can make whatever it is, right? So all these new innovations happen so quickly that I kind of asked myself, I was like, how do I know that rice or grass or coconut or sugarcane is going to be the perfect substitute for plastic? And the answer was, I don't know that. And so if I don't know that, why would I try to provide to my customers a one-size-fits-all answer when I know that that might not be? So rather than try to pigeonhole and go with one type of sustainable material, I thought, okay, you know what, let's give people choice in this category. Allow them to explore the materials, get feedback on that, and then on top of that, you know, allow them to choose something that fits their preferences. And this is also another nugget that was never really explored in this category, is that people didn't really understand that, you know, certain people have different behaviors when it comes to straws or spoons. Like you can't bite the rice straw and you can't bite the grass straw because the rice straw is too solid and the grass straw will break right away. Then you can't use the straw anymore. But you can bite the sugarcane straw. But the sugarcane straw only comes in one color. The rice straw comes in multicolor and you can eat it if you want to. But you probably not, right?
Well, you could eat it.
You could eat it, yes.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow, okay.
So having these choices, I think, was very different and very refreshing. And I think that's also what's going to help us survive in the future too. Because again, what if all of a sudden there's this amazing new material that is compostable and 100% bio-based and whatnot, it decomposes in like less than a month and it's super flexible as well and it comes out tomorrow. We're going to be left behind. And I think that's what's happening actually to a few sustainable companies, is because they're just so focused on one material, getting this one thing perfect,
I see.
that they're not serving the market right now. A large part of that is going to be affected, especially by regulation. So when regulation comes in, especially let's say in Europe, where they just they released a single-use plastic regulation, now they're saying that they're going to release some updates to it. Some of our products may no longer be allowed to be imported into Europe. So if we just stayed stuck again on one material, then we would kind of have no more business. We wouldn't be able to sell to Europe anymore. So being able to kind of bring in new innovation, despite the amount of work and potential cost, I think is worth it for us. That's really where we put our big bets.
Who are your like main clients? Would it be like cafes or like?
I'll say this, but it's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
So in our first year, because we sold online, what is quite interesting is that we did a very different sort of strategy. So we went direct to consumer and retail, and then we also did B2B. But because we had no B2B clients because they're all closed, we went only to direct to consumer. So we sold online, literally Amazon, Shopify. We sold our retail packs. So 95% of our sales in the first year was just directly to customers for use at home, because I guess they were at home a lot, having home parties, you know? And then after that, it switched over. So now we sell a lot to restaurant chains, coffee shops, to distributing partners. So people who do kind of food service distribution. So those are a lot of our partners.
I see.
Hotels too.
Hotels. Like, do you think like the landscape or like the market for like sustainability in Vietnam is like developing and changing?
Oh yeah, it's really fast. Like,
is it really?
This is one of the things I was super ignorant about because, you know, I came from the West. So I was like, I know everything and West is best. Like, that was not really true. So Vietnam is actually very well educated in sustainability. I think there's a lot of great innovation here. It's just that you're probably not hearing it as much in the news.
I see. Like, what would be like the benefits and disadvantages of being a founder here in Vietnam?
Okay, so I would say one of the cons is it is a little bit difficult to set up a company here to kind of manage banking, all that sort of stuff if you're a foreigner. That was what I had found originally, you know, and having to go through kind of like the work permit process is quite lengthy. I wouldn't say it's as you know, startup friendly as some other countries like Singapore or even Thailand if you want to start a business there. I would also say that the startup community here is quite small, so the resources that you would have here, I think it's quite limited, and it's because it's such a fragmented community. Like, all the entrepreneurs are fragmented, the accelerators are fragmented, the VCs are fragmented. It's a very fragmented sort of community. Yeah, they're trying though now. There's been a lot of effort recently, and maybe this was due to COVID too, but there's been a lot of effort recently by all parties to try to create this community where everyone could kind of talk together, support each other and whatnot at the moment. So I think that would be the biggest kind of con is like, you know, it's hard. It's hard right now. But if you want to kind of go in and really get, you know, I think very affordable labor in terms of both professional labor or manual labor, I think it's a great market for that. I think also something I've always said is that the Vietnamese people are very innovative in that for the most part, if you ask them, like, can you do this? Someone can do it, right? Yeah, someone can build it, someone can do it, someone can code it if you ask them. So there's not really a, like, no, you can't do that, like, no attitude here. And one of the things I would say as well is if you get here early enough as a business, as an entrepreneur, as a person, I think you'll find a lot of areas for growth because the country is developing so quickly. So I would recommend coming here if you want to be at the forefront of that growth.
I see. So my viewers are mainly like Japanese from our startup community. It would be nice, like, if I could know like some connections or what you would like expect in Japan.
This is actually a very timely question because we are planning on raising in next year. I think what we would be looking for is what a lot of people are looking for, which is like a investor who is really there for the long time, offering not just an investment, but being willing to have backstop you in case something happens to your business. Because if we can't count on you, then why would we want to take your money in the first place? So I think that's a big thing. And the second is we talk about strategic partnerships. And one of the things I've noticed as a trend, especially in the startup space, is most of us startups are like looking for strategic partnerships that are actually going to add value. Will you help us get customers, get clients, get exposure? Will you be able to help us secure our target of, I don't know, 2 million, 3 million in revenue or whatever else? If you can do that, then it's a shoo-in of having you on as an investor.
For sure. Yeah, it was great to have you. Do you have any like questions or like anything you'd like to add or?
No, I mean, I guess for whoever is watching this and thinking about coming to Vietnam and just exploring, the one thing I want to say is like Vietnam gets a really bad rep for being such a developing country or unsafe. It is super untrue. It is a very safe country. It's an amazing place if you want to develop your business. People should come explore it more. And not just for the pho, because that's the only like dish everyone knows. Like, explore it for the people, the innovation, the development possibilities here. And also, if you are going to start a business right now, don't make the mistakes I did. Like, don't make the financial mistakes in thinking that, a company can come save you or your customers will come. You have to prepare for every possible terrible result. But with that in mind, understand that none of that is worth the detriment of your health. I think we are so caught up right now, especially in this idea that you must always win, right? And of course, as an entrepreneur, you must be strong enough to win. But you also must be strong enough to be okay if you don't. So that's something I really stress, primarily because I've seen a lot of my entrepreneur friends try to basically hold on to dear life for their business and sacrifice everything else. And I just would not recommend that.
Oh, wow.
They sacrifice literally everything else. Relationships, their mental health, their bank account, everything, just to hold on to their business. And it's just not worth it. You can be successful with or without your business. So that's just my last words and thoughts.
It's very cool how you're like managing to balance that out.
I'm not right now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying. I'm doing my best, right? But I still overthink. I still stay up till like 3 a.m. Like, oh my gosh, I worry about 20 different problems.
Oh, really?
But it's balance, So.
That was truly inspirational and insightful. Okay. Thank you so much, Marina. It was great having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. If you guys need a Vietnamese liaison, I'm volunteering.
Yeah, definitely contact her. I'll put your LinkedIn.
Okay, LinkedIn, that's cool. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and definitely contact her if you're interested in their business and partnering with them.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.